Hi, this is Daniel here, and in this video I'm going to talk about why products fail. And in particular, I'm going to dig in on why private label products fail on Amazon. Now, the same concept applies to any business where you do create and sell your own products, but I'm specifically gonna explain this from the perspective of selling private label products on Amazon. So the question here is, why do products fail? And I'm sure most of you would say that the reason a product fails is because of competition. So if you've been selling private label products on Amazon for any amount of time, you know that sometimes products do fail, and sometimes you launch a product and it just doesn't do what you thought it would. And the main reason I think people will basically explain that failure by is competition. There's too much competition, it's too saturated, my advertising was too expensive, I couldn't get ranked, and that kind of thing, right? And that's a valid point. Of course, that is a massive issue and a reason products fail. Obviously, products can fail for different reasons, and it depends on how you define failure. It could be that the volume simply wasn't there, or the margin wasn't there, and that kind of thing. But obviously, those are things you should be able to make sure aren't going to be the case before you decide to launch a new product. But then when you launch the product, what happens? Does it succeed, or does it actually quote unquote fail and doesn't get the traction or the results that you wanted? So when that happens, I think the main reason people would mention is competition. And I do agree that that is a part of the reason, that is sort of an apparent thing, but it's not the real reason a product fails. It's not really because of competition. The real reason a product fails, in my opinion, is because it fails to deliver real value to the marketplace. So for example, if you basically just add another copy of a product that already exists, there's already plenty of good options for people to buy this product, so that's what we would call saturation, and you just add the same exact product to the market, you don't really add any value because there's no differentiation and there's no improvements that you're providing. So in that case, you're gonna have competition. In that case, you're basically just competing head on with identical offers, and the only variables that you have to compete on are things like reviews, the quality of the listing, like your copy, your angles, and price, and that kind of stuff. So basically just like bloody head-on collision type of competition. And in this case, it really just depends on your skill set with these things, your persistence, and how basically far you're willing to go, how much money even you're willing to spend and invest into getting this product promoted and ranked and performing compared to the competition. And if you're entering a situation where a lot of the competition is highly established, they have a lot of great reviews, they have been able to iterate and improve their messaging and their listings and things like that, you're gonna be facing an uphill battle, which you can win. But in that case, you really need to just be able and willing to spend money and just promote the product until you gain a position where it's actually profitable and sustainable. But even then, you're always going to have sort of an uphill battle. You're always going to have more potential issues, and you're just going to really have to stay ahead of things. There's more higher chance of something bad happening, you having like negative competition that tries to harm you and that kind of thing. And or you or them, I should say, actually going and using black hat strategies and that kind of thing to compete, because that can give you an edge. Those types of things are all you have to compete. So that's really the main, that's the actual reason behind the competition, is not adding value, selling a Me Too product. That leads to oftentimes a lot of competition and a lot of saturation and a bloody battle, so to speak. And in the last 7 years, I've sold hundreds of different products, and not only physical products, but also like consulting and coaching services and things like that. And what I've seen holds true for all of it is that the success you have, especially in the long term with it, is directly related to the value that you add. So basically, what innovation or what additional value do you bring to the market? Right, so we'll talk about how to do this with physical products, but basically the fundamental concept here to understand is that you need to deliver value, and you can't do that if you're just identical to someone else, because there's nothing of additional value that you have to offer, right? So that is not a recipe for success. So what you have to do instead is you have to actually provide value, and I'll again talk about in just a moment how to do this, because there's different ways to do it, and it's actually a pretty reliable formula for private label products when it comes to adding value. It's just sort of an evolutionary process. But what you need as well is you need systems, right? So of course, it goes without saying that even if you have a product that adds value, you still need to be able to tap into the marketplace on Amazon. You need to be able to generate exposure and traffic, and you need to convert that traffic and get sales and know how to really work with the platform to get the most out of it and be optimized for success. So that obviously goes without saying. But when you have great systems and you add value, that's when you really have success, and especially in the long term, big success. And I'm not saying you can't have success by competing head on, because you can, but it's going to be much tougher and most likely way less profitable as well. So now, how do we actually succeed with private label products on Amazon and prevent them from being failures? Well, there's two options really. And the first option is to find opportunities that have less competition and then also basically add less value. So if you have an opportunity that has less saturation, less competition, there's like only a few options of a particular product, and there's still good volume there, and there's a ton of these opportunities on Amazon, by the way. Still, today, even if there's a ton of people selling, because it's so vast, there's so many opportunities. So you can find products that have low competition and basically just add little value, but still succeed. So this might look like, just basically the same product, but maybe you just have slightly better branding, or you have something that comes with it. All the classic sort of private label stuff, you might do a bundle, or you might have a free gift, or you might even just have a better listing and be able to translate the value and resonate better with the market through that listing. So just the classical private label stuff. But that's really only good for low competition situations, really. And this is why, when I started, for example, like 7 years ago, all you had to do to succeed was really just do a private label product, because almost no one was doing it. So just by focusing in on the marketing, creating a really good listing and a really good, really good copy and images, and having a nice product, creating some better packaging than the market and that kind of thing. I mean, that would be enough to just be way ahead of the competition. And that is still the case for a lot of products on Amazon, but it is still, before you could do it for some of the biggest opportunities, and you would still have a massive edge, because no one was doing private labeling even for a lot of the bigger opportunities. So like the super high volume products, $100,000 a month plus in sales, that kind of thing. Right now, that isn't the case anymore. So the low value add approach, where you're just doing private label stuff to add value, really is only a great fit for the lower competition opportunities. Because if you go into the higher competition opportunities, where you're identical product number 100, then yes, you're going to have a lot of competition, right? So what do we do instead? Well, option 2 is to, if you want to enter high competition opportunities, really it is to have or add a lot of additional value, right? So if you want to really come into a high competition situation or scenario, and you don't want to use like black hat strategies and that kind of thing, you don't want to cheat, you just want to compete organically, naturally, then it goes without saying that you really need to have a product that has some form of added value, something of greater value than the rest. So it cannot be a total Me Too product. It needs to be more differentiated, and it needs to be more differentiated in a way that resonates with people and that something that people actually care about, right? So it needs to be not only added value, but also added value in a way that resonates with people and something that people actually want and care about, right? So now this could take a lot of different forms, right? It could be basically a product that is completely innovative and new and like a breakthrough transformation. But of course, that is not the easiest thing in the world to do, and it's not a given. So that's not necessarily the way to go, and especially not right away with a new product, because usually those kinds of innovations or inventions basically come through experience and exposure to a market where you're hearing feedback, you're working with the products, and you're basically, learning what actually works and how to iterate your products more in a certain direction, which is what people want, and then you can have breakthroughs on it. But before you really do that, it starts with just some more simple customization. So it is private label, but it's really going a bit beyond private label. So it's going into more product customization, right? Where you're actually changing elements of the product or removing certain things, maybe making things simpler, or adding something, or improving the quality, or using a different material, that kind of thing, right? So that's really when you can create a product that has a true edge and true differentiation. But again, the key is to listen to the market and understand, what problems are in the market currently with products, and how can you actually come in and add value here, with this product. And when you can do that properly, then you have a product that can succeed quite easily. If you have, great systems to actually get exposure and all of that, and translate your message so that people get it, they see the difference, you can highlight how your product is actually better and more of what they care about. Now you can come in with way less reviews than the competition, for example, and still convert better than them, and that kind of thing. So that's how you can break through into even very competitive markets. And of course, the more you can do this anywhere, the more successful you will be. And the thing as well is that, once you create some form of improvements, you want to continue to listen and iterate and continue to improve, because there's always ways to make it even better. And when you can continue to do this over time with a product, that's when you eventually create like a true competitive advantage and a true edge and some major differentiation that people really care about. Now, when it comes to doing this, so there's basically like these two options, right? For selling on Amazon, you can come into low competition markets with low competition market with products that add just little value. Basically, they don't really add much additional value to what is currently out there, but there's just so little competition that just by private labeling it well and selling it well, it can still work really well. But the other option is if you want to compete in more higher competition, with more higher competition products, more competitive products, then you really need to add more value. So that's option number 2. And then there's really 3 ways to do this with private label products. So there's 3 ways to really add more value. The first stage is by private labeling. So that's the classical stuff: bundling, packaging, adding things in, that kind of thing. Just simple, straightforward private label stuff, which a lot of people do. The second option is to actually go and customize products. So actually sort of change them and improve the actual product. And when you do this, what you want to do is you don't want to just add on things. You want to look to, again, identify what people care about, or at least a certain subset of the niche, of the market, and then get closer to that. Basically, appeal more strongly to that subset of the market, for example, or the entire market. Depends on what you're seeing, what you want to do. But when you do this, the ideal thing is to actually not only add things, but also remove things, because you want to be creating like true value innovation, right? So you want to be basically able to sell the product at the same price as the competition or lower, while still adding more value. So you don't want to just add things and raise the prices, because at a certain point, you have to ask yourself, do people actually care about this? Are they willing to pay, this much more to receive this additional value? And sometimes the answer is no. But if you can have clearly improved value and also reduce costs, so that you might add some things but also remove some things, then you can have a product that has, comes in at the same price point, but is different and has more value, at least to a certain subset of the market. And that's a great thing to do. That's an obvious improvement and an obvious value add for people. And sometimes you can actually do this and decrease your costs and cut the prices. And that obviously can be a fantastic value add to the market as well. Because there's also going to be people that would love to pay less and they don't need all this extra stuff, or whatever it may be. They don't want the fancy packaging. So you can also look at it that way. So there's plenty of options for most products to change and adjust things and basically do stage 2 of creating more value, which is customization. And then stage 3 is really the innovation. So this is when you basically create like a completely new design or something like this. And again, I don't recommend doing this right away unless you have like a brilliant idea, because this can cost a lot more money upfront and take more time. But once you have feedback, once you've been evolving your product through different stages, like you start private labeling perhaps, then you go into customization. Now you might see clearly that here are some things that I can do to take a huge leap forward with this product and add way more value by basically creating a new design or an innovation with the product. And that obviously can put you in a league of your own. You can trademark or patent, I should say, that invention and things like that. And obviously, if you're looking to build a brand, you can sell having those types of things within the brand where you have true differentiation that you own. That is the most valuable thing you can ever do, and should be really the ultimate goal if you want to build a really valuable brand that you can sell for a lot of money. So that's really how it works. And what I'm going to do, just as a free gift for you, is I'm going to give you my product pain points framework. So there's this simple sheet that I use to basically look at feedback in the marketplace and analyze it. So this is just one of many things you can do to get an idea of how you might be able to actually add more value. So I'm going to add a link to this below this video, and it's completely free, so you can go and access it, and you can just make a copy on your Google Drive so you can actually edit and work with this sheet. But I highly recommend it. If you're selling any product right now, use this thing on that product, for that product, to analyze the current feedback that you're seeing in the market, the current feedback you're receiving from your customers, potential complaints, product issues, things like that, and see what is missing. So this is basically looking at the actual product on a fundamental level and seeing how this product can be made better. And that obviously is adding value. So basically this framework, the product pain points framework, is a very simple, fundamental way to find opportunities to add true value with a product, and then obviously be more successful more easily with it. Now this is just one of many different things you can do, and one of many frameworks that I have to basically analyze products and find ways to add and generate true value in the market. But I'm going to give this one to you for free. And again, I'm going to place a link below this video where you can download the free product pain points framework to help you see more opportunities and open your eyes to the opportunities that you might have right now for your products to actually build and create more value and create better products. And that's definitely going to help you a lot. It's going to be the number one key, the most fundamental things you can do to increase your success and your profitability and the sustainability of your business in the long term. It's by actually adding value to people and giving them more of what they actually want. So I hope that helps. And I'm also going to put a link below this video to a free case study video, which you can watch and access again for free if you want to learn more about this system and doing this, but also other fundamental things and systems in a private label business on Amazon to make it stronger, more profitable, and more successful, and more viable and sustainable in the long term. So again, there's a link below the video if you want to access that free case study. And then third, I'm also going to put a link below the video if you're looking to scale up and you'd like some more intensive help with, for example, creating compelling strategies for your products and succeeding by adding more value. Because the product pain points framework is just one out of many frameworks that we use to actually identify and map out compelling product strategies that add genuine value to the marketplace that people care about, and thus create a huge competitive advantage. So if you'd like to speak with me or someone on my team about that, there's a link below this video so you can schedule a free call with us or a free consultation on that, and we can see whether or not we can help you with that and many other things as well to basically make your business more stronger fundamentally and to help you scale faster and more profitably. So that's it. I hope you found this really valuable. And again, to summarize, the number one reason I see private label products fail is simply because they fail to add value. They're Me Too products and nobody cares. And you're competing head-on in a bloody collision with other people trying to do the same exact thing. So the way to get around that is to actually find ways to add genuine value that people care about. And if you do that, it's a massive shift for you and your business. You're going to shift from being, always competing in this bloody battle head-on with just a finite set of variables with no real advantage, to you actually focusing on and identifying ways to add value, true value that people care about. And when you do that, then all the other stuff becomes way less important because you actually have something special. So that's it for this video, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye for now.